What's up, guys? So today we're taking a look at a fairly large knife. This is the Kansept Knives Goblin XL. Now I have to say, I do like this knife. There is a regular Goblin version of this, which is just a hair shorter. This one has a 3.5-inch blade. I forget offhand how much or how big the regular Goblin is, but as much as I like this knife, I do feel like it is big. I'm using air quotes there because it doesn't seem all that big, but you know, compared to a lot of your EDC folders, it might come across as big. It's not necessarily just because of the length, it's just because it's thick, it's wide. You know what I'm saying? Like most of your EDC knives you can imagine is like maybe that wide, you know what I'm saying? Your average handle or whatever, but you know, we have extra. And that little bit of extra does make it feel bigger in your hand than it really is. All right, so there is a regular size Goblin. I've never had the regular size one, although I do think that I would probably prefer it just a little bit to this XL version. Anyway, this one has the titanium handle here. There are a couple different versions of this. They all range just under 200 bucks, like 195 to, I believe BladeHQ has this one for 198. I'm not sure why this one's $3 more with the black blade and the bare tie handle. But like I said, there's a couple color variants on this one. So as far as some specs, our blade is 3.5 inches long of CPM S35 VN steel, which is phenomenal. This thing, it really does shave very, very well. And I say that literally because I shaved a part of my ankle. Once in a blue moon, I will shave some hair just to see if it's, you know, literally shaving sharp out of the box. In fact, I could probably do it right here for you. Sometimes I grow a little extra hair on the inside of the arm. I don't really need that, do I? So go ahead and shave some of that off for you. So you can see all that hair on there, hopefully. It is, it's literally shaving sharp. And this was used, it was never sharpened, but it was stropped up. All right, so now I have a nice little clean patch. You can't really even tell, can you? But occasionally I will do that on my legs. Not like in the middle of my leg, but literally at the bottom of the ankle, or sometimes on like my thigh, like the high part of my thigh, just because I'm not really showing off my thighs. At least not until summer rolls around. But yeah, it's pretty darn sharp. It has a very, because it's such a wide blade, and we have almost a full flat ground blade. It's not full flat, obviously, but we just have a little flat spot towards the top there. It lends itself to being very lean, very thin. All right, so if this blade was, let's say, this tall here, it might not be as thin on the edge. And it is just razor sharp. I mean, zipping through cardboard like crazy with this thing. This does have a Wharncliffe, or I would say a modified Wharncliffe blade here, because it almost comes across as a reverse Tanto or Tonto style blade, but it is very much, you know, a Wharncliffe in all intent purposes to describe that. It is pretty chunky though, 6 ounces, all right, for the weight. You do feel that, I can say that. Previously to carrying this one in my EDC rotation, I went back to a PM3, as well as I had an original Delica. I broke out an old school Delica. And I mean, those are both smaller knives, you know, so this definitely came in at feeling as much as it was big. All right, so the full 6 ounces in the pocket felt like 6 ounces, and like I said, just in handling it, it felt large, on the large side. 9.7 inches overall. This one is it's pretty interesting. You can see it's a very unique design. It is definitely something different. I do love the pocket clip, which we'll talk about in a second here. The only thing that I found negative with this knife is that there's basically 2 really comfortable grips. You can see there's a very distinctive finger choil here. If you keep your pointer finger in the choil, okay, wrap the rest of your fingers around the handle, your thumb lands perfectly on that jimping on the back, which is very purposeful, very nice jimping, okay, works very, very well. Or you can see there's a large flat spot up here, so if you choke up on it and you rest your pointer finger here, and then your other fingers just kind of wrap around, I guess you can use the middle finger in the choil. This also feels very comfortable. However, there's a weird sweet spot kind of right in the middle, and sometimes, you know, when I'm taking a knife out of my pocket and using it, I'm not thinking about grip that much. I just take it out and I grab it, you know. But there was a couple occasions where I went to grab it, and my finger was in between. It was not in the choil, it was not in this flat spot. It was right here in the middle. And when gripping a little bit harder, especially, you know, cutting through cardboard and stuff, And if you've never aggressively cut through like a bunch of boxes, you know, when you start feeling fatigue, because at first you can rip open a box, no big deal. You open a package, no big deal. Well, take that package, now take everything out of it, cut the cardboard, you know. I basically break them down to panels, all right? So once I have a panel, then I'll slice that panel at least 4 to maybe 10 times. Just, again, I'm purposely trying to use the knife and see how it feels in my hands, see if there's any hot spots, things like that. And the first box is usually fine. And you get the second box or a third box. But sometimes if I have enough cardboard stacked up, I start feeling fatigue. My hand starts getting a little uncomfortable. It's not necessarily a knife. It's just because I'm holding it tightly. I'm pushing hard. You know, even if it's nice and sharp, I'm exerting force. And that's when you really find out, you know, what a knife is all about as far as its grip. Because anyone can take any knife out, zip open one box, and be happy with it. All right. But once you get in there and you actually do some cutting, that's when you can feel, you know, little random things here and there. And, you know, in that moment, I just noticed that it would rub on my finger ever so slightly. Obviously, you could see, all right, where the lock bar ends here. By the way, there is a lock bar insert in there. You can see a little screw for it. But right in here, it just has the tiniest bit of a point. It's rounded. It's not crazy, but just something I noticed. All right, so super comfortable in 2 positions. But guess what? If you find yourself holding it in between both those positions, just like that, it can definitely come across as a little uncomfortable, specifically if you're using your knife pretty hard. But if you purposely, you know, grab it in one of the 2 positions, it feels fine. It is unique. It is definitely a face that either a mother can only love, as they say. Like I said, I mean, it's cool that it's aggressive, but I don't think it's the best looking knife, mostly because of the handle. I don't know. The blade's pretty cool. I could definitely dig the blade. I don't know, the handle, I can appreciate that it's different, but it's just not, I don't know, it's not lending itself to be special or, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing to me. Also, it's also a little plain. Because it's a large knife, having such a plain scale, I don't know, it stands out more than if it was on a smaller knife. I'd love to see any kind of CNC work, you know, a couple lines, a couple dots, I mean, a fake bolster, you know, CNC'd into it, anything. It just comes across as plain because, again, it's such a large surface area there. Lockup is fantastic on this one. All right, you can see this does stick up on the front. If you notice, I was using it like a front flipper, right? So you can use the front flipper. Because it's a larger knife, it's not as, I want to say easy. It's not hard to flip that open, but I have to purposely, like, you know, make sure, because it's heavy, you know, 6 ounces. So I got to, you know, kind of grip the back of that pocket clip my fingers and just get in the right position. It's not as easy to just whip out of your pocket real quick and flip open. You can, of course, you know, if you have a lot of time on it, you can get very used to it very quickly. But you can also see there's the massive cutout here, okay, which obviously you can open it slowly. What is nice about having such a large cutout is, of course, if you're using this in the winter or if you're using it in any kind of dirty environment where you have gloves, it is, or lends itself to being very easy to open with gloved hands, okay? So it's foolproof as far as opening. But yeah, like I said, the lockup is fantastic. There is no blade play at all on this one. As far as the pocket clip and its carry, it does carry quite high, even though, you know, you could probably angle it in your pocket a little bit and have a little less showing. Just naturally putting it in and out of the pocket, I notice it's sticking up quite a bit. I do really like the pocket clip just because it's something different. I don't know if this matches the knife so much as far as, you know, its aesthetics. Again, having these 3 lines CNC'd out, would have loved to see that theme continued on the knife. Just, you know, 3 lines, just boom, boom, boom. You know, maybe stagger them, like one here, one here, one here, whatever. Would have just really brought the whole thing together to be comprehensive. However, even though they didn't do that, I do like the pocket clip style, again, just because it's something different. But it does carry high, okay? So it's a big old chunky knife that carries kind of high. If you're not into that, totally understand it. Because it is a big knife, some people love to put on a lanyard. There is a lanyard spot on this knife. So you can see the back spacer here. It might be hard to tell from this particular view and lighting, but it's not 2 pieces, it just dips down. So if you had a side view, the spacer just has a little cutout here, all right? And then there is a pin that they put in there. So this way you have a dedicated spot for a lanyard. So if you want to add a lanyard onto there, you certainly can. I'll back this out a little bit. You can see the pocket clip is set up for right side tip up carry, and you flip it over and we can see there's nothing there for lefties. Unfortunately, you guys get left in the wind. It is not swappable to the other side. I can dig the front flipper thing. I just feel like I prefer it on smaller knives, just so, I don't know, it's just easier to handle. As far as any kind of markings, you can see obviously the Kansept logo up top there. On the bottom here, you can see the model number. It's a K1016A1, and then of course S35VN for our blade steel. On the back, you can also see a maker's mark. The maker, or designer, I should say, for this one is Marshall Noble. All right, I believe that would be his logo on the back. And then you can see the name of this knife is the Goblin XL. I do like little bits of information like this. You know, I deal with hundreds and hundreds of knives, and it's hard to remember names and stuff. I know right now this is the Goblin XL because when I got it, it was the Goblin XL. And I'm making the video, it's the Goblin XL, and that's what I'm thinking when I'm carrying the thing. But I'll tell you, if you hand this knife to me 5-10 years from now, I'm not confident I'm going to remember it was called the Goblin XL. All right, so having just a little bit of information on the knife is fantastic. I think blade steel on the knife, on the blade, is like paramount. It's something that is so important for the user to know, especially if you're trading and you know, bartering back and forth and stuff. People don't necessarily know everything about all these different knives, so it's just great to have that instead of having to look it up. I can appreciate a sterile knife, you know, looking good, but I don't care. It's not like it's written stupid, you know, big on the blade or something. It's just tucked away here and there, little bits of information. I like that. That is huge for me. You know, I hate getting a knife, and especially because I get so many different knives in trade. I don't know much about it in the beginning, or, you know, if it's a knife I haven't seen or heard about before or whatever, then I'm like, oh man, what steel is this? And I gotta look it up. And then of course, now that I know what steel it is, I have to, you know, test it out and see if I think that that's accurate. You know, and sometimes it's very hard to do, especially when you have so many different, you know, blade designs and grinds and stuff. Because I can have a really high-end steel that just doesn't seem to perform that great. And I have a low-end steel that seems to perform fantastic. And it has a lot to do, you know, with the edge geometry. And, you know, first of all, if I got it sharpened, because if I'm getting a knife used in a trade, I don't know, you know, what the previous owner did with it. I don't know if it has a factory edge on or anything. So these are all different factors that play into it, which makes it difficult to, you know, ascertain how good it is, really. But this one I did get brand new in the box. So I am really impressed with it. Like I said, overall, I think it's cool. It's definitely aggressive. I would probably much prefer the smaller one. Although I can definitely see the advantage of having a 3.5-inch blade. It's not always necessary, and especially for EDC tasks, a lot of guys like having big old knives, and you don't need a big old knife. You know, there's plenty of people out there, even in the EDC community, they get by just fine, you know, with their little, you know, razor holders, whatever that may be, whatever your flavor of the month EDC tool with a razor blade in it would be. They work too. You know, you only really need a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of blade for a lot of different cutting tasks, especially open up boxes of new knives, which a lot of us do, right? But it's still really cool. Like I said, if you're in the market for a larger knife, I mean, this is not like entering into cold steel biggins territory, in my opinion. Something to write home about as far as its size, but it is definitely just again, a touch bigger than the common or average size EDC. I'll give you a little air quotes there. The average size EDC. And it really just has to do with its width, more so than its length, because this is somewhat of a common length knife that doesn't feel all that big. But again, when you're gripping this, having a wider handle, you feel it. It fills out your hand, you know. But yeah, it's pretty good. I do like it quite a bit. If you like the design, absolutely. However, the almost $200 price tag leaves it open for a ton of different awesome knives out there, you know, so you'd have to just really fall in love with this particular design. I can tell you all the performance is definitely here. I've loved Kansept. I have to say, I've tried a bunch of their knives. I got a bunch of them in trade. I've had the opportunity to try so many of them, and I have more that I'm going to do a video on in the future. So overall, as a company, I think they're great, but their designs, I mean, you know, I would say probably 3/4 of them I love. And then ones like this pop up that I'm just kind of so-so about. You know, I really do think that I would fall in love with the smaller version in this particular case. And I don't always say that. A lot of times when you have, like, let's say, you know, the Benchmade Griptilian versus the Mini Grip, or let's say the Endura versus the Delica, I tend to kind of like the bigger ones. You know, I have bigger, chunkier hands. But this is one of those cases where it might just be the opposite. But anyway, there it is in all its glory. Let me know if you guys have the Goblin XL, and more specifically, do you have the regular size Goblin, and what do you think of it? Let me know if you have the regular size Goblin and maybe what size glove you wear, And, you know, do you feel like it's small? Is it not big enough? Would you prefer something like this? Or do you think it fits your hand just right? I wear XL gloves, and I think this is just a hair on the big side, but it's not really big enough to want to carry a big blade. Like oftentimes when I'm carrying massive knives, it's either because I have a specific chore in mind that I want to do with them, or I'm going somewhere that I can't have my gun. And it gives me just a little bit of peace of mind that I have a massive blade on me, if that makes sense. And of course, if you haven't seen it before, I've showed these before, but I do really appreciate the box style, all the information on the back end of these boxes. All right, rip that open. We have a little, you know, welcome pack here with a little cleaning cloth. And these knives usually come with a sheath, which again, I just always appreciated that they have this little option there. It's a nice little touch. I'd say you see that on a lot of these Chinese knives where the packaging and the extras, you know, they're all about the extras. And it's kind of cool. I mean, you're spending decent money on a knife. It's nice to get those extras. But anyway, that is it. That is the Kansept Goblin XL. Let me know what you think of it. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.